What's going on, everybody? Oh boy, it's Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. We have 177 more work days until summer vacation, but who's counting? Guys, if you missed Monday's MidLife Live episode, you're going to want to check out a taped review of it. Had a lot of fun with three of my favorite guys, not just in the hobby, but in the world. Darren, Return to Collecting, Mike Petty, and Tony, Southern Collector 14. Great guys. We had a blast. Thank you to everybody who showed up in the chat. I mean, I'll say it and I'll say it and I'll say it. The thing that makes live streams fun, the reason of even doing a live stream, is that it's live. And part of the aspect of live is the two-way communication between the chat and between the panels. So thank you to everyone who showed up. If you missed it, don't worry. I promised one live stream per month during 2025. So that means September's live stream is right around the corner. MidLife Live number 9 is coming up quick. Details will come on that once I finalize my panel. So if you are new, welcome. What we do here on Wednesdays is people present their questions or topics for consideration to be part of the agenda of things to discuss. Sometimes it's current events, sometimes with the hobby. So, I mean, current events not with the hobby. That's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to avoid that. But whatever it is that you want to talk about, hear my thoughts on, or just really start a discussion, start a dialogue. That's the whole thing, is the dialogue starts with your question. Then I share my thoughts here, and then the dialogue continues in the comments down below. Remember, if you have a question that you want added for future consideration, all you have to do is down below in the description, in the comments. I always say that wrong. In the comments to the video, all you have to do is type out your question there. Remember, I am currently accepting submissions for the Midlife Community Show and Tell, your favorite pickups from July. Now, I am hoping for a monster month because the National was in July. At least the start of it was in July. And so if you were at the National, what's your favorite pickup? If you weren't at the National, what's your favorite pickup? Again, thank you to everyone who has been cropping their photos, doing high quality images, and uploading those. Again, just one per person, please. Otherwise, it can get a little crazy. So down below in the description, that's where the description comes in. There will be a link to a Google form. It will ask you a few questions. It'll ask you for your name, what your pickup is. It'll ask you for your email address, and it'll give you a spot to upload an image, the image that you've cropped. That's a nice image of your pickup. And what that does is it also enters you into the monthly drawing from our friends at the Penny Sleever. Remember, every month they raffle off for us four $25 gift cards to the Penny Sleever, which is where I buy my hobby supplies. I think they've got outstanding materials, outstanding products, outstanding service, and the stuff comes fast. They're great guys. Greg, are you getting paid to say this? Nope, I'm not. The Penny Sleever is great. My buddy Isaac over there, great guy. Highly encourage you to use them. But again, by uploading your favorite pickup into the community show and tell, you are automatically entered into the drawing, which will happen at the end of that episode. Now, the deadline for this is Sunday. So you have today, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 more days. 5 more days to upload your favorite pickup. Please don't forget one of my favorite episodes of the month. That said, let's take a look at our first question for this week from you. One thing I learned about today is that if the greatest self is 1.5, but has beautiful centering, would cost me more than an OC card that grades a 7. It's mind-blowing for me. As of now, thanks to you, I'm hooked with T204, T205, and T206. Which players should I focus on? I'm interested in Addie Joss, Cy Young, and Ty Cobb. All right, what players should you focus on? I feel like this is a trick question, and not for the reason that you think. The reason I think it's a trick question is because we should always be focusing on the player that we most want to collect. We should be focusing on the player that we enjoy their story, we enjoy the history, we enjoy learning more about, we enjoy collecting them. And for one person, that might be Cy Young. For another person, it might be Addie Joss. And for another person, it might be Ty Cobb. So for me to decide for you or suggest to you who you should collect, that feels backwards. You should be collecting the player that you like the most. We all should be doing that. I collect Matt Manning cards. And there aren't a lot of us Matt Manning collectors in the world. But I love picking up his cards. Same with Greg Nettles. There are not a ton of Greg Nettles super collectors, but I'm one of them. And I don't do that because somebody else thinks it's a good idea. I do it because I like it. So that's the easy response. Now, what I think that you're asking is which one do I think has the most long-term potential? I think that's what you're wanting to ask me. So from a strictly valuation, future valuation perspective is how I will finish this response. But again, I think all of that should be topped by what you want to collect, okay? So that said, I, for a long time, have said that I think that the players that are going to hold value and increase in value the most are the ones that will long-term be relevant in society. The more relevant the player is in society, indefinitely, the safer their card values are, and the higher the ceiling those card values are. So for me, I think the person that has the most long-term societal impact and will always be acknowledged and remembered and revered is Jackie Robinson. So I think Jackie Robinson is like the safest place to store your card value. Now, could something happen? Maybe. But Jackie Robinson is always going to be in our history books. Jackie Robinson is always going to be a cultural hero and icon. And Jackie Robinson will always be Jackie Robinson. And to me, that makes him long-term societally relevant. And that, to me, is the number one thing that correlates to long-term value and long-term demand, right? So it's the same thing with Mickey Mantle versus Willie Mays. Most people would say Willie Mays was a better all-around player than Mickey Mantle. But that doesn't matter as far as card values because Mickey Mantle tends to be more societally revered, sought after, relevant because of his story, because of the franchise he played for, because he was a power hitter, because he was likable. Those sorts of things add to a person's potential value. After Jackie Robinson, for me, the next one is Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth has the name. Babe Ruth has the image. He's just got it. And he's Babe Ruth. And so I think people will know about Babe Ruth for a long time. As a result of him being societally relevant, I think he'll be very hobby relevant, and there will be a lot of demand. To Sorry. I think I'm good. I think those two guys are 1A, 1B. So, in answering your question about Ty Cobb, Cy Young, or Addie Joss, again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you who you should buy. You should buy who you want. And this is not an investment channel, nor should you hear anything I say as investment advice. It's purely for entertainment purposes. But if I were to ask 20 people on the street, do you know who Ty Cobb is? Several would know. If I said, do you know who Cy Young is? Several would know. If I said, do you know who Addie Joss is? A couple would know. So to me, that means Addie Joss is not going to be at the same sort of relevancy with society, with baseball history. Very good player, Hall of Famer, an intriguing story, definitely somebody I would consider collecting. I have a couple of his cards I've been searching for a long time, so I would like to add those to my collection, but he's not as recognizable of a name. Now, that leaves us with Ty Cobb versus Cy Young. The thing about Cy Young is Cy Young basically just pitched and pitched and pitched and pitched and pitched for decades. He pitched daily, and he pitched until his arm fell off, and no one will, didn't really fall off, but you know what I mean. He pitched and has a record of the most wins of all time that will never, ever, they say all records are made to be broken. That record will never be broken. His all-time win record is never going to be broken. And then they named the Best Pitcher Award after him. And if you were to look at all of the awards in the history of sport, in all sports, you know, all of sports, basketball, football, baseball, hockey, there are only a few awards that you know the name of who it's named after, right? There are just a few. And one of them is the Cy Young Award. So every year in the near future, in the early fall, late fall, you're going to start hearing Cy Young, Cy Young, Cy Young. And that's going to keep Cy Young relevant. Now, Cy Young was not a devastating, he was not a devastating pitcher. Cy Young is a second ballot Hall of Famer. Think about that for a second. Take a step back. Cy Young was a second ballot Hall of Famer. David Ortiz was a first ballot Hall of Famer. Cy Young was a second ballot Hall of Famer. But we all know his name because he has an unbreakable record and he has an important award named after him. Ty Cobb is a player who anybody who knows much at all about baseball history knows Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb is arguably the best hitter of all time. Depending on which stats you use, right? I know there's been some changes in the stats over the last year. A lot of people would argue that Ty Cobb has the best all-time batting average and has several records. And he has over 4,000 hits. Like Ty Cobb is a legend. So to me, I think Ty Cobb is a more premier player than Cy Young. I think Cy Young will always be in people's mind and recognize his name. So I would definitely say one of those two. Personally, if I was going to choose either Cy Young to do a run of or Ty Cobb to do a run of, and I had to say which one do I think has the most upward potential, personally, I would say Ty Cobb, because I think Ty Cobb is a name that a lot of people know, is a name that a lot of people aren't going to forget, but also is a more premier player than Cy Young. That's my response. But again, please, not investment advice. I think you should buy the player who you like collecting the most. Andrew says, hey, Greg. So you've been doing for a while now the monthly $50 cards video. You mentioned, though, in this Q&A, the Bonds rookie and a Mattingly. But do you ever find it difficult to enjoy buying cards at the $50 mark because they are only $50? Or do you have an interest in adding $50 affordable vintage cards to your collection too? Thanks. Great question from Andrew. Here's my response. The cards that are the hardest for me to obtain are the cards that when I obtain them, I get the biggest endorphin rush. So if there's a card where there's only 3 of them on the planet that they know of, and I'm able to locate one and add it to my collection, like that's a major score. Like that, obtaining that really, really difficult card to obtain and adding it to my collection is amazing. The story in which I was able to add my Blackbeard N19 card, it was a rabbit trail that led to a rabbit hole, which led to a deer trail, which led to another rabbit hole, and then boom, I'm presented with the opportunity. It was like a CSI investigation to locate and obtain that card, which made it amazing when it showed up in the mail. Now, some cards are a rush because they're expensive, but they're expensive, and what the expensive part does for me is it makes them hard for me to obtain. The T206 Ty Cobb card that I got at the National, that card is not hard to find. I could go on eBay right now and find one. But it took so much patience and so much work and so much savings and so much strategizing to acquire the funds to be able to land that card, that when I finally landed that card, it was like, oh my goodness. But it wasn't, oh my goodness, because I paid $5,000 for it. It was, oh my goodness, because of how difficult it was to obtain the $5,000 to be able to purchase the card. So to me, it's not about the value of the card that gives me the biggest rush. The thing that gives me the biggest rush is when it's something that I've longed for a long time. My Sadahara O rookie card that I bought, I don't know, what was that, 6 months ago, more than that, 8 months ago maybe. The thing that was amazing about that for me is I remember wanting that card as a kid. They don't come up for sale very often. I don't see them very often. They're expensive. So it was like check, check, check on being difficult for me to get one. And then I got one and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So for me, that's the key. Are there cards that are not expensive that would give me a rush to buy them? 100%. Now, a 1962 Topps Al Kaline is not a difficult card to obtain. So I'm not going to get a rush personally. I'm not going to get a rush from buying that card unless I found a card that was in like a 4-holder and it looked like a 9. That would be a hunt. Finding a 4 that looks like a 9 of that card would give me a rush because I would feel like it's a needle in a haystack to find one that nice with that low of a grade. So I don't know if I'm doing a good job of answering your question, but long story short, short story long, probably the latter. I don't think it's about the value. I think it's about the difficulty to locate it, the difficulty to obtain it. And there are a lot of cards that are not particularly expensive, but you don't stumble across them at your local card show. And so when you add some of those types of cards, for me, that is an awesome addition. So that's my answer. Yes, there are cards under $50 that I would love to add. Yes, there are cards that are $5,000 that I'd like to add. And it's for the same exact reason. It's for something that I want, that I don't already have, that's difficult to find and obtain. But then when I finally obtain it, it'll be awesome. Whoa, definitely not on the combined registry. No how, no way. SGC may have a little more accurate grading, but it is also a lot easier grading. I can't wrap my head around how many times I see cards with clear corner dings end up in an SGC 9.5 holder. Hard pass for me. Also, what would be the positives of creating a new slab that looks like a PSA, but gives the note that the grade was derived from SGC grading? Why not just keep it in the SGC holder if both the current SGC slab and the new hybrid slab are both going to say it is a grade derived by SGC? Not sure what that makes a ton of sense for collectors. All right, I love it when I share a thought or an idea and people don't think that it's necessarily a good one. That is fun. It is fun to have the back and forth. It is fun to have contrasting opinions. Again, if we all agreed on everything, it wouldn't be that much fun. If everybody was a 49er fan, it wouldn't be nearly as much fun to be a 49er fan. I like having people that are on the opposite side. So I don't have any problem with this sort of discourse, especially because you did it, I thought, in a fairly respectful way. All right, here's my thought. First, my buddy Tony, Southern Collector 14, was on with me Monday night. Tony has an amazing Josh Gibson card. And that card, when he bought it, was in an older SGC holder. And that older SGC holder is, I would say, 10 years old, 15 years old. And when you have a really special card, a really expensive and valuable card, and over time, cases get kind of beat up. Well, they look so nice when they're in a brand new holder. And that's one of the things that when Tony was sharing that story, Tony was talking about how great it looked in the fresh, brand new holder. So if SGC went away, okay, they went away. That was the premise for me saying the thing about the kind of uniformed holder. Then you would never be able to get a new SGC slab again. You would never be able to get a new SGC slab. So if you could never get an SGC slab again, and something happened to the case, it got damaged, it got cracked, it got old, it got beat up, whatever it is, and you could never replace the slab because the company's gone, what would you do? What would you do? Because if you cross it to PSA, PSA is not going to honor the grade, right? So what PSA would do is they'd say, well, so you want to cross it over? So we're going to regrade it. And you're probably going to end up with a different grade. Now, some people don't care about different grades. And if you fall into that category, that's great. But some people are kind of protective over those grades. So if SGC went away and you wanted to replace the slab, what would you do? My hypothesis, my suggestion was that PSA would be able to produce new slabs for SGC cards where it's acknowledged that it was an SGC grade and not a PSA grade, but you can get the new slab. The other piece of this is a lot of us, myself absolutely included. Now, some people don't care about this at all, but a lot of us, we like uniformity. So some people are SGC only people, right? My buddy John, 3D80s kid, he is an SGC guy. If you look on the cases behind him, everything is in an SGC holder. Well, if SGC went away, every card he got after that wouldn't be in an SGC holder. But I can tell you, I have mixed holders and it drives me bonkers. I think I'm not alone. So what would you do if moving forward, you couldn't get a matching size slab? The thickness is different. The height is different. The width is different. So what I think a lot of people would want is I think a lot of people would want to have another slab option that PSA would still be in business, I'm assuming. And since Collectors owns SGC and PSA, it's a way of continuing that sort of option. Now, I don't think that just because SGC went away, they would still do new slabs for SGC. If Collectors said SGC's gone, but if you want to replace your old slabs, we'll do that for you. I don't really see that as a future option because I don't really see that as a moneymaker. And so I think what SGC or what PSA/Collectors would do is find some sort of compromise of, hey, we want you to keep grading with us, but SGC's gone. Again, I'm assuming that the premise is that SGC is gone. So we will accept your cards for grading with PSA. We will accept your crossovers, SGC to PSA, for review, which may or may not have the same grade. Or if you want to get your cards reslabbed and they're SGC slabs, we'll put them in this other holder, which is an SGC holder, but it's a PSA slab. That's just a suggestion. Will Collectors do it? I don't know what they're going to do. I'm just throwing spaghetti at the wall. I'm not suggesting that they will do this. I'm not suggesting that this is what's going to happen. I'm just saying I could absolutely see something like that, because what it would tend to do, I think, is people would go, well, all right, I can't grade with SGC anymore. I want all my slabs to match. I don't want to cross all my cards and lose all my grades. So I'm going to take all my SGC cards. I'm going to send them into PSA. I'm going to get them in the PSA slabs that says that they're actually SGC grades. And then for uniformity's sake, I'll continue grading with PSA. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, no way, I'll never give PSA a dime, or it's SGC or bust, or if it's not. I'm just saying, if I were Collectors and I decided that I was going to get rid of SGC, I would try to create something to retain the former SGC submitters into the fold, and doing something like that would be a bit of an olive branch to keep them under the Collectors grading umbrella. Again, will it happen? I have no idea. It's just a thing. It's not real. It's science fiction. It's just a thing. But that is my reasoning behind it. Again, I got multiple questions on that one this week. I have a question for next week that I would love to hear your thoughts on. To me, the most undervalued thing in the hobby today is vintage football. I find it absolutely amazing that modern and ultra-modern football are the most popular cards currently collected today, and the NFL is currently the most popular sport, yet vintage football is mostly ignored. What is the reason for this? Will people eventually find vintage football more appealing, move into it, and values of those cards increase? All right. First of all, I totally agree. I totally agree that vintage football is severely undervalued. When you compare a card like an autogram rookie card from the 1950 Bowman set to a Mickey Mantle or a Willie Mays rookie card from the 51 Bowman set, the price difference is unbelievable. And I definitely think that vintage football is undervalued. I think that it's the most popular sport in America right now. I think that the youth are collecting vintage football way more than any other sport. So it would seem that eventually they would go into vintage football if they're currently into modern football, right? Because I don't know if I misspoke there, but currently kids are collecting modern football more than anything. I agree, and I've said this somewhat regularly for a couple of years, and there are other people who've told me I'm crazy, and they make a good point. These other people who say, no, that's not going to happen, they make a really strong argument. And the argument that they present, and I obviously can't present their entire argument because I'm not them, but one of the main things is all of the records are held by modern players in football. And one of the main reasons for that is because the game has changed so much. You know, these guys play on turf now, AstroTurf instead of natural grass. A lot of the bad weather areas are in domes. The rules against touching quarterbacks and touching wide receivers is just completely different. The dynamics of football now are so different than they were in the early days of football that you don't have guys like Hank Aaron and Babe Ruth at the, toward the top of the records. You don't have guys like, Ty Cobb or Josh Gibson at the top of the batting average titles or records still. You don't have guys like Pete Rose and Ty Cobb at the top of the hit list in football. Those guys are way down the list because the game has completely changed. And when they're never mentioned in the records, they tend to be more forgotten. Another thing is baseball is really good, and this is, again, their argument, part of their argument. I'm not going to be able to say the whole thing, but football doesn't do a very good job of highlighting their former heroes. Sometimes at the Super Bowl, they'll trot out some of the former, Super Bowl MVPs or something. But we don't see those guys as much. Now, I think part of the reason for that is because in football, guys are broken down. Their bodies get destroyed, so they don't live as long. I mean, you think about some of the best, players of all time. A lot of those guys do not live as long as baseball players because of how hard football is on their body. So what are you going to wheel out this guy who's, 55 years old on a wheelchair because his body is completely destroyed from the game? Like, that's the reality of football players. The number of all-time great football players that died at extremely young ages is wild. And so we don't see those guys as much. The other piece of it is we don't recognize football players as much because they have face masks. You don't see their face. You kind of see their face. And with cameras now, you see them a little bit on the sidelines and stuff. But in baseball, you can see the players. You can recognize, oh, that's Aaron Judge. Oh, look, that's Derek Jeter. Oh, look, that's David Ortiz. We recognize them. But in football, they're kind of hidden. I think that's part of it. I think those two things are a big part of it. I don't think that's all of it, but I think that those things are part of it. The other piece that I think part of it is we kind of have this long history of baseball cards. Like a lot of people say, I collect baseball cards, but they collect all sorts of sports cards. They don't say I collect sports cards. They say I collect baseball cards, because collecting baseball cards started like 125 years ago. The history of basketball cards and the history of football cards is not nearly as complete as it is baseball. So what we have in our culture, part of Americana and American culture, are baseball cards. And baseball was the sport back then. And so I think that those are definitely part of it. That said, I still think, I agree with you. I think football cards are due for a bounce. Some of my personal cards that have gone up the most over the last, since the end of the COVID thing, so what, 3 years, are my Jim Brown rookie card has gone way up in value. My Autogram rookie card has gone way up in value. My John Unitas cards, my Bart Starr cards, my Sammy Baugh cards, like those cards have done really well over the last 2, 3, 4 years. Now, will they ever hit baseball? I don't think so. I don't think football cards will ever hit baseball, because again, it's not part of the culture. Culture is not something that can change just because it seems like it should change. Culture is what it is. And I don't think that the culture is going to suddenly change that, oh yeah, all the vintage football cards are suddenly going to go through the roof. But vintage football cards are lower populations than vintage baseball cards, but they're not as complete. So when you have these long gaps where there's no major sets, it's hard to go, oh, I'm gonna go collect football cards from the 40s. Like there's not a ton. There's not a ton of them. And part of that is, the development of the NFL and what the NFL is. It's not as old as the development of professional baseball in the country. Now, both of them have been around for a long time, but not in the same completeness of the releases of the different sets. And I think that the gaps of major releases in basketball and football cards hurt it. But again, I agree. The low-hanging fruit for me are vintage football cards. I don't get it. I don't understand why an Autogram rookie card is not worth way more than it is. It makes no sense. And I have one. Is that why I think it? I don't know, maybe. But my Sammy Baughs, my Johnny Unitas rookies, like all that stuff seems way cheap for what it is. You don't count your cards in your net worth? Why not? All right, let me start by saying that probably part of the reason that I don't count my cards in my net worth is because my cards aren't worth that much money. Now, some of my friends have tens of thousands of dollars in cards. That would be different. That would probably be different. But for me, my collection is just a microscopic amount of my net worth. I own my house outright. I've been saving for my 401k since I was 22 years old. Those things make up my net worth. Cards are cards. Cards are my hobby. If I'm penciling out my net worth, I don't add in my golf clubs. I don't add in my television and my couch. I don't. Maybe I should, but I don't. I don't add in my hot tub in the backyard. To me, those things are entertainment. And entertainment is its own category. That's what I do for fun. What I do for finances, for planning, for future, being able to pay for things, that's a whole different category. And I'm never, and this is me. Now, again, just because I don't count it in my net worth doesn't mean other people shouldn't. Other people probably should. But for me, my cards are not part of my financial plan at all. If my house burned to the ground and all my cards were inside, it would not affect the trajectory of my life and the finances of my life. I would be sad. I would be really sad, but it wouldn't affect my financial well-being. And if losing something wouldn't affect my financial well-being, then I don't really consider it part of my net worth. Now, there are absolutely people that I'm friends with in the hobby that have bought some high dollar cards, and those high dollar cards have extreme value and will, if something happened to them, it could potentially affect the trajectory of their financial health. That's not my situation. For me, cards are simply a hobby. They're simply for entertainment purposes. That's why I've said a million times today that don't take this as investment advice. This whole thing is not investing for me. This whole thing is entertaining for me. In the description of every video that I've posted from the beginning, it says, do not take any of my advice as investment advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. That's all this is. Cards are entertainment for me. If you are looking at cards as an investment, if you are looking at cards as a place to store value for your future livelihood, then I'm probably not the right guy to be listening to, because I'm doing this because it's fun. I'm doing this because it's how I escape from the realities of the world in which we live. And that's it. And when I spend money on cards, it's never, ever, ever money that I could potentially need. It's never going to be money that, well, I think I'll be able to pay the light bill next month, but I'm going to go buy this Cy Young card at the National. No. I think that I can make my next car payment, but I'm going to go buy this Ty Cobb. No. Some people take money and they set it aside and they go to concerts and they go to movies. Some people set money aside and they pay for green fees and they pay for tennis lessons and new racquetball equipment. I take money and I set it aside for cards. I go on fewer vacations than some people, but I buy cards instead. This is my form of entertainment, and my entertainment for me, I'm not speaking for everyone. Let me be very, very clear. I'm only speaking for me. For me, this is my entertainment, period. Do I want it to go up in value? Sure, why wouldn't I? Of course I would. It would be cool if it went up in value. But if it all went to zero, I'd be sad. I would be kind of bummed out, but it wouldn't affect my finances and it wouldn't affect how much I love the cards. I hope that makes sense. That's where I stand. Hey, if you guys have a question for an upcoming episode, don't hesitate down below in the comments. Ask your question. Remember, in the description, there's a link to upload your favorite pickup from July for the Midlife Community Show and Tell. That deadline is Sunday. Thanks for watching.